Every day we start the show with the Daily Special, and it's going to be about a basketball team today.
Time for our top story of the day. It's the Daily Special.
I mean, what can you say at this point? 5 in a row for this team. They beat the 76ers last night, and they're off to a really good start. You can't be disappointed with what you are seeing so far. They're able to go and take on the 76ers, who have Paul George in the lineup for the first time, and you only get 13 points from Devin Booker, who has a uncharacteristically bad night. 0 for 6 from behind the three-point line, 3 of 18 from the field, and yet you somehow find a way to win the basketball game 118 to 116 in large part due to Kevin Durant's 35 points. And that is what we continue to say about this basketball team right now is it's not pretty. It's not perfect. It's not wire to wire where it just looks like the basketball we expect this team to play or we know they can play with the talent that they have, but they just find ways to win. They only had one guy score more than 20 points, and that was Kevin Durant. You look up and down this box score. Your next leading scorer. So Kevin Durant, 35 points last night. The next leading scorer on the Phoenix Suns was Bradley Beal with 17. Nurk had 15. Royce O'Neal with 15 off the bench. And then it was Grayson Allen with 14, Devin Booker with 13. That's it. That was your main scoring in this game last night. And so to be able to find a way to win that basketball game, when you have those kinds of struggles, 3 of 18 for Devin Booker. You have a night where Ryan Dunn plays 10 minutes, 0 for 3 from behind the three-point line is a minus 16, right? Those are the rookie lumps you're going to take with Ryan Dunn. And so you look at this game and you compare it to winning the game against Portland with the fourth quarter almost collapse, the early leads that they've deposited to the Lakers and the Clippers early in the season, and they've been able to overcome those. 4 of their 6 wins are just all over the place. They are different ways to win the basketball game. And that, to me, is the takeaway from this early part of the season, is that there is not one way this team has to win. There is not one way that this team is going to stay relevant. They are still finding themselves, and despite finding themselves, they're able, because of the talent, because of one of the big 3 stepping up. Last night it was Kevin Durant. They're able to find a way to win. Kevin Durant hits the go-ahead shot with 24 seconds left, breaking the tie, and they win 118-116. And the 76ers coming into this game, I said it yesterday, the perfect time to play the 76ers. 1-4 to start the year. Joel Embiid's getting into it with reporters. It's just not a good situation. Yes, it was Paul George's debut last night for this team, but they are nowhere near their peak. They are nowhere near 100%. And you catch them at the perfect time, and you find a way to win. Nobody's going to call that a pretty win, but I'd rather an ugly win than a pretty loss. And for the Phoenix Suns, there have been some ugly some ugly wins to start the year, and that's fine with me. 4-0 at home to start the year, 6-1. And we have said this. We have cautioned against reading too much into the early stages, and I'm not going to change that position. It's 7 games in. We're not going to do this every single game. Like the first time they lose a big game, we're not going to immediately abandon the process. But we have talked about this team hitting certain milestones over the course of the season. And I don't know how, through the first 7 games, you can't help but feel that they are on track to hit all of those milestones. They're 6-1 and they're not playing their best basketball. They're 6-1 and they've had to have 2 major comebacks already. They're 6-1 and they had a night where a key component to the big 3 was 3 of 18. I mean, remember last year? Do you remember all of the games last year? The game would start, and one of the keys to the game would be, or the discussion would be, the big 3, Durant, Booker, Beal, they would have to combine for 75, 80, 85 points. There would be a number that you would say that group had to hit, right? If they hit that group, they hit that number. If that group hit that number, they would be able to win the basketball game. Well, last night, Durant scored 35. Booker and Beal combined scored 30. Those guys combined for 65 points. and they still were able to find a way to win the basketball game. That's encouraging. That is on a path towards hitting those benchmarks. Because if they can win that game in that way in November, what's it going to look like if they're all healthy and they're on the same page at the end of the season? And so that's the frame. That's the context I'm looking at all these early games from. Man, that's awesome that you came back from 18 points down, 21 points down. That's awesome. That's great. To be able to do that in November when you're still trying to put this all together, that is a great message to send to your fan base early in the season. Don't make it a habit. And the Phoenix Suns so far are 6-1, and they're making a habit of it not looking the best and it not looking pretty. But how could you not be over the moon? There was a major question mark this summer over the idea of running it back. Should the Phoenix Suns run it back? Should they bring back Durant? Should they bring back Beal? Should they bring back Booker? Should they give it another go with the big three? And it was just back and forth. Well, how are you going to trade Bradley Beal on that money? Can you really trade Devin Booker? So it would have to be Kevin Durant that you trade. What could you realistically get for Kevin Durant at an old age? Yeah, maybe it probably makes sense to run it back. Yeah, but you don't have a ton of assets. You're above the second apron. You can't do a whole. All summer long, we spent all of the angles looking at this from every possible scenario that could have played out for the Phoenix Suns. And the decision that this organization came back to was trying to thread the needle, brought in a new coach, kept the big three, were able to, even though they were above the second tax apron, make the additions that they are able to make, to get a Tyus Jones, to draft a Ryan Dunn, to lengthen their bench a little bit. And they decided to run it back. And so far, the early returns, not the only time today you're going to hear the term early returns, producer Corey, right? That's not the only time we'll hear the word early returns today.
Exactly.
Right,
yeah.
exactly. So the early returns, and I don't know how many of these puns I'll try to sneak into the show. Probably will be few, but we stumbled into one, so we'll do it. The early returns for the Phoenix Suns season are good. What do the final results look like? That is still going to be the question that hovers over this team. I don't think there's anything they can do in November, in December, even in January that's going to shake the feeling that we all felt at the end of last year. That feeling only goes away when we get to next season, or we get to the end of this season, we get to next year, and the results look different. This team is competitive in the second half. This team is competitive in the postseason. That's when you are going to start to feel comfortable with this team. But I think you are sitting back today and you feel like things are trending in the right direction. You probably feel a lot better than you did if you were on the fence about running it back in the summer. You feel a lot better about where this team is. This team is 6-1. You love that they handled a team like the 76ers because, again, the perfect time to play that team, a team that is kind of lost right now. And you look at what's coming up on the calendar. It's one more East Coast game against Miami, and then it's a really nice swing where we're going to learn a lot about this team. Dallas, 2 against Sacramento, Oklahoma City, Minnesota. After this game on Wednesday against the Heat at home, they're going to play 5 of their next 6 on the road. A really nice test for this team early. They played 2 on the road to start the year, but both were in LA against the Clippers and the Lakers, so didn't have to go far. Their only other road game other than those 2 to start the year was against the Lakers. So this is great. Some home cooking, playing some bad opponents, catching opponents at the right time. It has allowed you to start the year 6-1. You're on a 5-game winning streak. Let's see where we are on November 18th when this team is back home taking on the Orlando Magic. Let's see how they get through going to Dallas, going to Utah, to Sacramento, to Oklahoma City, to Minnesota. Let's see how they get through that stretch of the Western Conference. We've been warning everybody, the Western Conference this year is going to be a gauntlet. Let's see where we are when they get back, when they play Orlando. So far, so good. Last night, another example of this team being different than last year's team, finding a way to win that basketball game despite Devin Booker being 3 of 18 from the field. And when you're able to win games when one of your stars, one of the main cogs of your offensive wheel isn't working, yeah, you can get excited about that. you can get excited that this team has some juice and this team can do something this season.